The insane story of Aeroflot Nord Flight 821. A routine flight turns deadly. The night air over Perm, Russia, was thick with humidity as Aeroflot Nord Flight 821 prepared for takeoff from Moscow's Sheremetyevo International Airport. The Boeing 737-500, a seemingly reliable aircraft, was packed with 82 passengers and 6 crew members. Among them was Captain Yevgeny Grigoriev, a seasoned pilot but one with a history of struggling under pressure. His co-pilot, First Officer Alexei Voronov, was younger, enthusiastic, but inexperienced in crisis situations. Passengers shuffled to their seats, oblivious to the fate that awaited them. Among them was Elena Markova, a 32-year-old mother traveling with her 7-year-old daughter, Anya. Sitting near the back was Ivan Petrov, a businessman heading to Perm for a crucial meeting. Then there was Sergei Mikhailov, a former Soviet Air Force pilot, now a civilian, who watched everything with a practiced, almost paranoid gaze. The engines roared to life, and at exactly 22:50, Flight 821 lifted off the runway, disappearing into the dark, stormy sky. A disturbance in the air. At first, the flight seemed routine. The passengers settled in, some reading, others dozing off. But in the cockpit, things were far from calm. "Wind is picking up," Captain Grigoriev muttered, glancing at the instrument panel. The turbulence outside intensified. He gripped the control column, trying to keep the plane steady. Alexei, the co-pilot, looked nervous. "Should we request a higher altitude to avoid this?" The captain hesitated. His pride wouldn't let him show uncertainty. "No, we'll handle it." What neither of them knew was that the aircraft's angle of attack was increasing dangerously. The sensors flickered, momentarily, then steadied. But something wasn't right. In the cabin, Elena Markova clutched her daughter's hand. Anya looked up at her mother with wide eyes. "Mama, why is the plane shaking?" Elena forced a smile. "It's just the wind, sweetie." Sergei Mikhailov, the former pilot, furrowed his brows. He could feel it, something was off. The movements were not typical turbulence, but erratic, almost as if the pilots were fighting the plane rather than controlling it. Then, the first sign of real trouble appeared. The autopilot disconnected with an abrupt chime. The descent into chaos. "Autopilot disengaged?" Alexei asked, his voice tinged with concern. The plane suddenly banked left, then right. Captain Grigoriev wrestled with the controls. "Why isn't it responding properly?" he muttered. The truth was terrifying. They were suffering from spatial disorientation. The instrument readings didn't match what their senses told them. The artificial horizon indicated they were tilting, but the pilots, especially the captain, distrusted it. In reality, the plane was in a subtle but deadly nose-down attitude. "Check the speed," Alexei said, his voice rising. "Throttle up," the captain commanded. But instead of leveling out, the plane's descent increased. In the cabin, people began to notice. Ivan Petrov, the businessman, gripped his armrest. A few nervous gasps spread among passengers. Sergei unbuckled his seatbelt, feeling his military instincts kick in. He walked toward the flight attendants, whispering, "Something's wrong. Tell the pilots." One of the attendants nodded and knocked on the cockpit door, but inside, chaos was unraveling too fast for the pilots to respond. The ground was rushing toward them. The last stand. Alarms blared in the cockpit. "Terrain! Terrain! Pull up!" Alexei shouted. "Captain, we're descending too fast." The captain, drenched in sweat, made a fatal mistake. He yanked the control column back too abruptly. The plane stalled. Outside, the dark forests of Perm loomed. The passengers screamed as the plane's nose pitched violently. Elena clutched Anya tightly. Ivan gritted his teeth, bracing for impact. Sergei, knowing what was coming, closed his eyes and whispered, "God help us." Then impact. The Boeing 737 shattered as it slammed into the ground just a mile short of the runway. Fire erupted from the wreckage, illuminating the night, like a beacon of horror. The aftermath. Rescue teams arrived within minutes, but the devastation was complete. The crash had left no survivors. As investigators combed through the wreckage, the truth emerged: a deadly mix of pilot error, spatial disorientation, and poor training had doomed Flight 821. In the end, no mechanical failure had caused the tragedy, just human error. And as the city of Perm mourned, one question lingered: could this have been prevented?